Okay, good evening. Thank you, everybody, for for coming. Tonight is August 5th, 2019. It's the fifth Dine and Learn of the summer. Tonight's dinner is sponsored by the Tabor family. Thank you very much. If anyone would like to sponsor...
Yosef ben Aharon, Aaron's father.
In memory of Aaron's father... Yosef ben Aaron. And Shama should have an aliyah. Please speak with Moshe about sponsoring future evenings. It's the 9 days, so we'll talk about Halachah from Poland in the Golden Age regarding the 9 days, and specifically Tisha B'Av that falls out on Shabbos. So there's a minhag, not a minhag. Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to learn Torah, except for the bad parts, and because Torah is joyous, it gives us joy. And there's some who even say that on Erev Tisha B'Av, as we get close to the evening, you shouldn't learn because that joy will remain with you. And you should therefore learn in the afternoon before Tisha B'Av only things that you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av so that you'll be in the correct mood as Tisha B'Av joins. So machlokas, and when Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, so we don't observe any or anything public of Tisha B'Av on Shabbos. Only after Motzei Shabbos and on Sunday is when we observe it. So it's also a question of whether you're allowed to learn normal Torah on that Shabbos because it is technically Tisha B'Av, and also in the afternoon because it is Erev Tisha B'Av. Or maybe on Shabbos, because we don't observe any public signs of mourning, we should just learn regular in the afternoon until you hit Tisha B'Av. So some machlokas, different opinions. Mishnah Berurah seems to lean towards leniency, although I don't recall if he actually reaches a conclusion. This isn't a Halachah l'maaseh shir, but in the Bir Halachah he does quote the Maimer Mordechai, who very strongly states that if he could, he would even permit learning just regular Torah on Tisha B'Av itself. Because what happens? You can't learn your normal learning. Instead, you have only certain... How many times can you learn that same Gemara in Gittin over a lifetime? There's just and people learn what they want to learn. That's really where you're able to pay attention. And on a fast day, it's hard to focus as it is. Add to that, you're learning things that you're not normally. And in the end, people walk around, they schmooze, they take a walk, and they take a nap, an extra nap, a third nap. It's not the way. It's not the right answer to the problem. So he's even leaning towards permitting learning anything on Tisha B'Av. But he says, what can he do? The Gemara says you can't, so he's not going to go against that. But anytime you can be lenient. So that's what the Aruch HaShulchan says. Aruch HaShulchan says that there are different opinions, and it's a suffix. So we should always lean towards the answer that enhances Talmud Torah, and not the answer that enhances Bittul Torah. So therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan leans to be lenient on Erev Tisha B'Av and on Shabbos that is Erev Tisha B'Av, but again, this is not a Halachah l'maaseh shir. But I saw a similar concern rise in a totally different topic in our time period. So you remember, Rav Yosef Katz was the Av Bezdin in Krakow, the brother-in-law of the Ramah. So Ramah was passed away in 1572. So after that, very young, right? We spoke about that. After in the 1580s, at some point, one of Rav Yosef Katz's Talmidim opened up a yeshiva in Krakow right near Rav Yosef Katz's yeshiva. And that's not allowed. So Rav Yosef Katz, if he objected himself, so it's not so strong, it doesn't really work. I'm sure he did have a talk with this fellow, and it didn't solve the problem. So he asked various Rabbanim around the area to write on his behalf. One of the people he asked, or he sent his Talmidim to send him a letter, was Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi. So who was Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi? He wrote the Maaseh Hashem, which you might know from, I think it's on Chumash, but on Haggadah, it's like the most famous one. It's a Pirush on Haggadah. So if someone's called Ashkenazi, there's one thing you can be sure of. He's not from Ashkenaz. Because, let's say you live in Berlin, nobody's going to call you Berliner because everyone is a Berliner. It's only if you leave Berlin and you go somewhere else, they talk, oh, that's a Berliner, because that's where you're from. So his family was from Ashkenaz. He grew up in Sephardic lands. He learned, I think, by the Beis Yosef in Sfas. He became a Rav in Egypt, where he was there for decades. And then we don't know the exact story, but for some political reason, he needed to flee the Ottoman Empire. So he went to Italy, And then he slowly made his way up to Poland, and he was the Rav of Posen. He was a huge Talmid Chacham, the Rav of Posen in Poland. And so when he was there, he later, towards the end of his life, he moved to Krakow and became best friends with Rav Yosef Katz. That's not the case yet. So Rav Yosef Katz sent a letter through his Talmidim to Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi, could you tell my Talmud to stop? And he got the exact opposite response. We don't have the letter, but Rav Yosef Katz quotes pieces from it, and it's clear. Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi says, I don't understand, they say you're a Talmid Chacham, but it's obvious that should be mutter, so I don't know why you're even asking what's going on. And so Rav Yosef Katz, we have in his Sheris Yosef, Simin Test, he responds back. He goes through point by point, very respectful. Rav Yosef Katz, he writes as if, he always says Ahuvi, says very respectful. When he starts out, I just want to point out something interesting. This is Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi. So he has a little poem in the beginning, and he says, he refers to him, Vekinuyav Laser, V'Shem Echad Eliezer. So even in those days, 450 years ago, Eliezer was called Laser. Okay. It's a very ancient nickname. So the issue boils down to as follows. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Kol acholek al rabo kecholek al shechina. If you disagree or if you contradict your Rebbe, it's as if you're contradicting Hashem. And they quote a pasuk from, the Gemara quotes a pasuk from talking about Korach, specifically Dasan ve'Aviram, and actually Parshas Pinchas. It says, Perek Chavav, pasuk Tes, talks about Dasan ve'Aviram Kiryei ha'eda, Asher hitzu al Moshe. They rebelled against Moshe. Ve'al Aaron, and against Aaron, Adas Korach, B'hasosam al Hashem. So who is it? Did they rebel against Moshe and Aaron, or did they rebel against Hashem? So the Gemara learns out, if you rebel against your Rebbe, like Moshe, it's like you're rebelling against Hashem. So what does it mean, Cholek al Rabbo? Sounds to me like you disagree with your Rebbe. So the Rambam says, no, Cholek al Rabbo means that you set up a yeshiva in the perimeter of your Rebbe's yeshiva. It's in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Parakeh. And the Torah quotes this. So it sounds like Cholek al Rabba should be disagreeing, but it really means Cholek al Yeshiva, so you disagree or you dispute his yeshiva. So that's where Rav Yosef Katz was coming from, saying, my Talmud disputes my yeshiva. He set up another yeshiva. It's against the Rambam, it's against the Torah. So Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi says, no, that's not what the Gemara means. The Rambam, he's a minority opinion. Yeah, sure, some Achronim follow him, but the majority opinion is, it means contradict. Your Rebbe paskins one way, and you disagree with him. Explicitly, you paskin a different way. You rule a different way than your Rebbe. That is Cholek al Rabbo. So says Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi, your Talmud is just setting up a yeshiva. That's fine. Talmud Torah, that's good. And he says the Ramach, Rav Moshe HaKohen of Lunel, the Ramach in his Hagos on Mishnah Torah says, I don't know where the Rambam got this from. Where did he set up another yeshiva? What's this makor? What's the source? So it says Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi, see, the Ramach disagrees with the Rambam. So Rav Katz, he replies on multiple levels, but he says, look, I looked at the Ramach, the Kesef Mishra quotes the Ramach. He doesn't disagree with anybody. He just says, I don't know what the Rambam's source is. Doesn't mean he disagrees. It's a good argument, but we actually have nowadays the Ramach's glosses with his Hagos in the Frankel Rambam. They show the whole thing. And it's not just he says, I don't know what the source is. He actually says very explicitly, I disagree, I think he's wrong. And in France, Lunel, where he lived, the Ramach lived, he said, we do this all the time. The Talmidim set up a yeshiva near their Rebbe, and nobody's happy about it, but it's mutter. So the Ramach did disagree with the Rambam. But, be that as it may...
What's the Havamir that should be wrong? What's the problem? You're taking away business?
So Rav Katz points out, so the Gemara's Raya is from Dasan and Aviram. So elsewhere, it talks about Dasan and Aviram as follows. What was their argument to Moshe Rabbeinu? Ki sistarer aleinu gam histarer. You're going to have authority over us? We're rejecting your authority. So they says too. Also, if you set up a yeshiva in your Rebbe's perimeter without his permission, you're rejecting his authority, and you have to accept the authority of your Rebbe.
So there's no issue Hasagas Gvul, like businesses,
Oh, so Hasagas Kvul, so there could be, but the Rambam, the Gemara in Bava Basra says very specifically on Yeshiva, there's no issue of Hasagas Gvul because Yagdil Torah, Kinas Sofrim Tar Bechokma. We want competition in yeshivas.
So that's the counter argument. That's leading to the. I would think you would use that as a fulcrum to say, okay, because I'm not a Hasagas Gvul, therefore I'm allowed to build this yeshiva in your perimeter.
So to formulate it a little differently, if it's not your Rebbe who you're fighting against and who's you're in competition with, then you're right. It would be a good thing, because competition creates better products, better teaching, and better shepherding of the students. If you have permission, you need from your Rebbe. You need permission. That was the conclusion here. So the Bach, who overlaps slightly with the Rav Yosef Katz. So the Shach actually quotes the Tshuva as the Maharich, Moreno Harav Yosef Katz. So the Bach, he points out that there's a Gemara in Brachos. Oh, the Rashi on the Gemara says Cholek al Rabba is Cholek al Yeshivoso. So Rashi seems to agree with the Rambam. And Rav Yosef Katz says, you say the Rambam is a minority opinion, but that's because you're ignoring the Torah, you're ignoring the Maharik, you're ignoring all these, you say Achronim, they count also. So if you add it all up, it's actually the majority follow the Rambam. So I don't know why you think that he's a minority. And the Bach also says, Rashi seems to agree. And so Gemara Brachos said you're not allowed to disagree with your Chavzayin Amud Bes. You're not allowed to dispute your Rebbe's yeshiva, not just dispute your Rebbe, Cholek al Yeshivaso. And the Sabach who brings a proof from Srara, from that earlier pasuk of Kisis Tarer Aleinu. He says the whole idea is that you're rejecting your Rebbe's authority, and that's something you need to accept. So interestingly, though, the definition of what is a Talmud. So they're talking about a Talmud Chaver. So because you're a student, but eventually you grow up, and you can become very knowledgeable, and you can become to some degree equivalent on the same level as your Rebbe. Fine, you're 20 years, 30 years younger, but you're already in that area where you're conversing each other as relatively equals. So is that considered a Talmud or not? So it's a machlokes. Says Rav Eliezer Ashkenazi, it's a machlokes whether this guy is even considered a Talmud to fall under this prohibition. And if there's a suffix, wherever there's a suffix that could lead to Bittul Torah, we go the other direction. We go towards more Talmud Torah. And when he says it very explicitly. Okay, I don't have it right in front of me. So that when I saw that, I thought exactly this Aruch HaShulchan, that's exactly the same attitude that we follow, at least Aruch HaShulchan follows when it comes to learning Torah. And there's the story of the Beis Yosef, the Beis Halevi, Rav Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik, the grandfather of, the great-grandfather of Rav Soloveitchik from America. So the story was a maskil. I think we're talking about this in Shabbos. So one of the maskilim in those days went up to the Beis Halevi, was the Rav Brisk, I think, or maybe the Rav Slutsk at the time, and said, nowadays the Rabbanim, we need them to be more lenient. The generation needs leniencies, and I'm coming to you, the wrong guy, right? The wrong guy. We need leniencies. And the Beis Halevi, on the spot, said, you came to the right guy, because I've got leniencies for you. Let me tell you some of them. If you forget to say Kriya Shema by Chadso, so it's a machlokes rishonim whether there's still time, whether you have to say it at all after. It's already after midnight. It's too late. You didn't daven. Should you say Kriya Shema or not? Says the Beis Halevi, I makel. You still say Kriya Shema. If you're holding by Chadsos in the Seder and you haven't eaten your afikomen, he says, I makel. Eat your afikomen. And so on and so on. He says, Erev Tisha B'Av, the afternoon, so machlokes whether you're allowed to learn Torah. He says, I make you learn Torah. And it's the same attitude that when it comes to learning Torah, we're makel on learning Torah or we're machmir on bittul Torah. So that's part one. Part two, I would like to talk about a very interesting tshuva, the Maharshal, that I really don't get. Maharshal Simon Nun Daled. So we've talked about how the Maharshal was very strong, had a very strong-willed and strong language. He was asked about this minhag nashim that he calls minhag nashim. of women who continue not to eat meat and wine after Tisha B'Av until Shabbos Nachamu. And he says, that's not a minhag. So even though, in part of the question, this is mentioned in Sefer HaMinhagim. So in the Ramav, very frequently in Shulchan Aruch, he quotes Sefer HaMinhagim, it's the Minhagei Terna. It was written by Rav Yitzchak Isaac Terna, and for whatever reason, that was a very good record, the best record we have of the minhag in Ashkenaz. And that is basically considered the baseline minhag of Ashkenaz that everything is built on. So if you, all sorts of Sefer Minhagim, if people wrote about this town and the Vermaiza and this town, Minhagei Terna, that's the gold standard. And in the Sefer HaMinhagim, apparently, I looked it up, I couldn't find it. But they say in Sefer Minhagim of Terna that there is a minhag that you continue not eating meat or drinking wine all the way through Shabbos Nachamu. And so the question is, do you have to keep doing this? And if you decide not to, do you have to be matir your neder? Do you have to undo it? Because a minhag is a vow, and do they have to undo the vow? So the Marshal is very strong. This is nonsense.
What was the reason for the minhag?
Oh, hold on. We'll get there. It's actually not such a bad minhag. So the Mishnah in Tanis in Perek Daled, it surprised me. Hold on, bear with me. The Mishnah in Tanis says that the Shavua of Tisha B'Av, we don't wash our clothes, and we don't take a haircut, shave, whatever. So the brisa that goes on and quotes three opinions in Chavtes Amud Beis and Lamed Amud Aleph. Three opinions of the Tanoim. Listen to this. Okay. So Mi Rosh Chodesh ve'ad Hatanis, from Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av, Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kol HaChodesh Kulo, the entire month of Av. We follow these strictures even after Tisha B'Av, all the way till the end. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Eino Aser Ela Oser Shabbos Bilvad. Only that week of Tisha B'Av is Aser, from the beginning of the week till the end of the week. So if Tisha B'Av is on Tuesday, starting on Sunday through Friday, you don't eat meat and you don't drink wine, even after Tisha B'Av. Three opinions of the Tanaim. Why? Where does this come from? It's a pasuk in Hosea. The pasuk says, "V'hishpati kol misosa," and I will destroy all of the happiness. Chaga, Chodsha, V'Shabbasa. The holiday, the month, and the Shabbos, the week. So each one learns from a different word. Chaga, Rabbi Meir learns, Chag refers to Rosh Chodesh, so he starts it from Rosh Chodesh. Chodsha is the whole month, so that's Rabbi Yehuda. And Shabbasa, that is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that week, the week of Tisha B'Av. So what's the conclusion of the Gemara? Who do we follow? None of them. Says the Gemara, we follow Rabbi Meir about the end, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel about the beginning. So we follow both of them Lakula, because Rabbi Meir says it ends on Tisha B'Av, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says it begins on the week, the Sunday. So this is the minhag of Sfardim, of Shavua Shechalbo, the week, and this is the Shulchan Aruch, the week of Tisha B'Av. Most of the strictures start mostly Shabbos, Saturday night, and they end after Tisha B'Av. Says the Maharshal, the Gemara paskins, it ends at Tisha B'Av. Who are you to be machmir beyond the Gemara? You're disagreeing with the Gemara. So you're trying to follow Rosh Hashanah Gamliel against the Gemara? So fine, you want to have a chumrah, it's fine, but not against the Gemara. And he quotes Gemara in Brachos. So it's Machlokes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, how you say Kriya Shema. According to Beis Shammai, B'shachbecha, in the morning you have to say Kriya Shema standing up, and B'kumecha in the morning, and B'shachbecha at night you have to be lying down or leaning down when you daven Mariv, when you say Shema at night. So it's not just talking about Kriya Shema Lamita where you're lying down. It's talking about in Shul when you daven Mariv, you have to be sitting down or leaning or lying down on the floor, according to Beis Shammai. So we pass like Beis Hillel. So in the Mishnah, Rabbi Tarfon says, I was machmir like Beis Shammai, even I was traveling with a caravan at night with daven Mariv, so I leaned down on the floor to say Kriya Shema. And it was dangerous, but I did it anyway. And the Mishnah says, "Kedai." It was a bad thing. You mechayev asmacha. You're mechayev misa to some degree because you put yourself in physical danger to be machmer like Beis Shammai. We don't hold like Beis Shammai. You're not allowed to follow Beis Shammai. Says the Marshal, see, you're not allowed to paskin against the Gemara. There, the psak is like Beis Hillel. You have to follow Beis Hillel. Here, the psak is like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Lakula on both, to be lenient on both. So you have to follow the psak of the Gemara. And he says this doesn't make sense. Because why don't we eat meat and drink wine for us in 9 days? Or from Rosh Chodesh, the Shavuot Shechaba for Svardim. Why not? So he says there are two reasons given. One reason is because just to reduce the joy. Sarah Ba'alma, we want to feel more pain. And the other reason is because of the karbanos. The karbanos were from meat and from wine. So therefore we refrain to commemorate that the Beis HaMikdash has been destroyed. After Tisha B'Av, the mourning for the Beis HaMikdash is over. So why Sarah Ba'alma? Why are you making trouble for yourself? Or why are you mourning the Beis HaMikdash? It's over. The time is done. It's the wrong time. It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, it's a minhag, a mistake. It's not a real minhag. You don't even have to be matined. You don't have to go to a rabbi. Just stop immediately. He tells these women, stop being machmir on this. It's a mistake. So the Kerasa Kasha, what about us? We start from Rosh Chodesh. The Ashkenazim, we start from Rosh Chodesh. That's against the Gemara. So the Rabbi Shaya Pik Berlin asked the Shaila of the Noda B'Yehuda. He said, How can we paskin against the Gemara? So the Noda B'Yehuda answers, and this, by the way, so it's a minor Sfarim point. So the Sharei Tshuva in the Shulchan Aruch, right, in the Mishpur, they have the Sharei Tshuva. So it says it was written by Reb Chaim Mordechai Margolios. I don't know if it's the brother, the uncle, the father of Rav Ephraim Zalman Margolios, the Beis Ephraim. So he wrote the Sharei Tshuva. The Yad Ephraim was written by Rav Ephraim Zalman Margolios. It was the big posuk of his generation. But I've always heard that the Sharei Tshuva was also written by the Beis Ephraim. Even though the title page, if you look on the title page of Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't say that. So I don't know what happened, I don't know who this is or what, but here he says, on this halachah, he says, and I wrote in my Yad Ephraim, so it's the same guy. So he definitely wrote at least some part of the Sharei Tshuva. I don't know the history of that. Then he tells you to look in the Noda B'Yehuda. That's how I saw the Noda B'Yehuda. So Noda B'Yehuda says as follows. The Gemara said, the Mishnah says, Mishenichnas of Mematin B'Simcha. Okay, so this is how we're Memat B'Simcha, is we don't eat meat and we don't drink wine. So what we're doing, even though it's against the psak of the Gemara says, you must do it from the beginning of the week till Tisha B'Av. We are fulfilled the Mishnah through doing it even longer from Rosh Chodesh Av. So that's okay. But after, who says there's no idea, there's no concept of doing it after? So that is the Maharshal's Kasha. So the Bach says, he's just baffled by this Maharshal, the Tshuva of the Maharshal. He says, first of all, not only is it in the Minhagim of Terna, it's also in the Maharil. And by the way, I looked it up in the Maharil, I couldn't find it, but that could just be me. And I also looked up in one of these new editions of the Bachs where they fill in all the Marmekomas and they tell you what page it's on, but that page doesn't exist, at least in the editions of Maharil that I looked for. So I don't know where it is, but I'm sure it does exist, because there's a page number for it. So the Bach challenges the Maharshal, and he says, we have documentation of this minhag. It's not some mistake. So the Maharshal says, where does this minhag come from? It's a mistake. It must have come as follows, because sometimes Tisha B'Av falls out on Thursday, and then on Friday, who's going to eat meat and drink wine? It's Erev Shabbos. So then comes Shabbos, so that's why people didn't. And even if it was on Wednesday or Tuesday, these things are expensive, and just to save money, people didn't have, Lamaisa, in reality, they didn't have meat and wine until Shabbos. So therefore, we have documentation of the reason why. It's in the Maharil, it's in the Minhagei Terna. It's very strange. And he says, of course you're allowed to be machmir against you're not against the Gemara, you agree. The halacha is as follows, but I'm going to do more. That's allowed, even if the Gemara says halacha is like Rabbi Meir of Shimon Gamliel. You're allowed to do more if you want. It's not disagreeing with the Gemara. It's saying, personally, I'm going to do a little more. Shema is different. Shema is different because halacha, nothing's gained by lying down to say to daven Ma'ariv, to say Shema at night. In fact, in that case, you lost something. There's no halachic benefit, and it was dangerous. Here, there is a benefit, because Kedai, based on Mikdash, I think it's Kedai the Chorban to cry on it the whole year. So you add a few extra days, that's also a good thing. Look, we have Zecher the Chorban throughout the year. The idea that Maharshal said, after Tisha B'Av, no more, first of all, we do until the afternoon of the 10th of Av, right? We do observe some mourning. But throughout the year, we observe some mourning, here and there. We break every chasana, we break the glass. The leaving an amma by amma unpainted. There are all sorts of not listening to music, except in circumstances which, whatever, another conversation. But of course we have Aveilus on the Chorban throughout the year. So that's the Bach. So the Taz adds, but just to be sure, don't say I'm following Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, because then you are cholik on the Gemara. Just say this is an extra chumrah that we're doing. Good. Magen Avram adds, if you follow this minhag, then when Tu B'Av, right, that's a celebratory day, no Tachnon, yay. So on Tu B'Av, if it falls out on Friday, which means you're still in the week of Tisha B'Av, just after Tisha B'Av, so then he says, don't follow this minhag on Tu B'Av, because Tu B'Av is a happy day. Shouldn't be, and even a little bit of Aveilus on for the Chorban on Tu B'Av. So in that Tshuva, the Noda B'Yehuda, he was asked as follows: what does that even mean? Well, how can Tu B'Av ever fall out on Friday? This year it does. If Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, we push it off till Monday, and then Tu B'Av, the 15th, ends up being on a Friday. So says Rabbi Shai Pik Berlin, if that's the case, there is no Shavua Shechal Bo Tisha B'Av, because when is Tisha B'Av? It's on Shabbos. We do the fast on Sunday, but Shavua of Tisha B'Av is actually the week before. So Tu B'Av is not even part of the Shavua of Tisha B'Av, of the week of Tisha B'Av. So what's the Magen Avram talking about? So Noda B'Yehuda says no, that's not pshat. If you look in the Brisa, so Sephardim who only observe the strictures on the week of Tisha B'Av. So in this kind of season, when Tisha B'Av falls out on a Sunday, what do the Sephardim do? So the Shulchan Aruch says, the Gemara says, if it falls out on a Sunday, then there is no Shavua Shechabo. If it falls on a Shabbos or Sunday, there is no Shavua Shechabo, because the week before is not. And the Sunday after that, there's not, because we follow Rabbi Meir Lakula. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Min Hadin, from the actual conclusion of the Gemara, there is no Shavua Shechabo, and Sephardim, or he's saying for all Jews, you don't have to observe the strictures at all. Just go straight into Tisha B'Av. But Yesh Omrim were machmer the whole week before. So instead of getting away easy, it's the opposite. It's the hardest situation, because then you have the whole week of Shavuot Shechabo. So I don't know what, I think it's a machlokes. Some Sephardim do.
No, they don't have.
They don't do anything.
Meat.
Meat, they don't do meat and wine.
They don't do meat and wine the whole week.
Yeah, like everybody.
Right.
No, Rosh Chodesh they eat meat and wine. Rosh Chodesh they eat meat and wine, but that's it. After that, no meat, no wine.
And this
But
is,
showering, shaving, everything else. Is
and when you say Sephardim, you mean
everybody, all the time as well. The Teimanim eat meat and everything.
the Teimanim? Okay.
Yeah, so Sephardim also this whole week they do eat meat.
So yeah, so I saw. I know the Ben Ish Chai is machmir, that you should do like the Yesh Omrim to do even more. I just don't know if everybody follows that way. I don't know if Rabbi Yosef. I don't know. I didn't check what he says in the Yalkut Yosef, or his son says it. Also not.
See what I'm saying? I just-
Yeah, and the Syrians. Good. Okay, so the last thing, the Noda B'Yehuda's proof is as follows, because for the language of the Brisa is as follows. Also, Lasaper Lachabes Mirish Chodesh Vadatanis Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds you're not allowed to have a haircut or to wash from Rosh Chodesh until the fast. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kol HaChodesh Kula, also the entire month. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer Eino Asar Ela Osa Shabbos Bilvad. So what did Rabbi Meir say? Again, Mirish Chodesh V'ad Hatanis. He doesn't say until Tisha B'Av. He said until the fast. And if you look throughout this Gemara here, Chavtes Amud Beis Lamed Amud Aleph, they only talk about the Tanis, the fast. They don't talk about Tisha B'Av. Says in the Yehuda, when Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos and is pushed off till the next day, it's not that we observe the fast on the next day. He says all of Tisha B'Av is moved to the next day. And therefore the Shavua, the week of Tisha B'Av, is considered that week of the next Sunday. And therefore you would also follow until Shabbos Nachamu, which would be a long week. And then Tu B'Av, if it falls out on Friday, that's when the Magen Avraham says, don't observe it on Tu B'Av because it's a happy day. So Yis Hashem, we should only have to know about this for this year, and then never again should be Lamavas Lanasech. Okay.